I was pregnant when they threw me and my children out just a day after my husband's death. The house that once held my laughter became the very place where I was treated like an intruder. My swollen belly pressed against the cold night air as I clutched my daughter's small hand. They took everything, our home, our clothes, even our wedding photos, and tossed them into the street as if we were garbage. "Mommy, why are we sleeping outside?" my 4-year-old daughter asked, her big brown eyes filled with confusion. Her tiny body trembled as I tried to keep her warm in the pouring rain. My scarf wasn't enough to protect her from the chill. I pulled her close to me, resting her against my belly, whispering promises I wasn't sure I could keep. Inside the mansion, the same place I once cooked meals, decorated for holidays, and called a home, his brothers were celebrating. They drank champagne, their voices rising above the thunder, mocking me, calling me worthless. To them, I was nothing more than a burden they had finally gotten rid of. But what cut the deepest wasn't their cruelty. It was his mother, my mother-in-law, a woman who once braided my hair and called me her daughter. That night, she stood by the window looking at me and my little girl shivering in the rain. Our eyes met. For a moment, I thought maybe her heart would soften. But instead, she pulled the curtain shut and left us in the dark. Before I continue, make sure you hit subscribe. Stories like this, full of betrayal, pain, and silent revenge, are real and they will leave you speechless. Subscribe now so you never miss the next part. The moment that will forever haunt me is still fresh in my mind. My daughter bent down to pick up her crayons that had fallen into the muddy water. Her little hands shook as she tried to clean them. Then she looked up at me with the kind of innocence that only a child has and said, "It's okay, Mama. Daddy will fix it when he comes home." Her words crushed me. My knees gave out and I fell into the mud, my belly heavy with grief. How could I explain to my child that her father would never come home? That death had taken him away forever? The rain was merciless, slapping against our skin, mixing with my tears. The smell of wet dust and iron filled the air, and the sound of thunder rolled like a warning only I could hear. Cars drove by slowly, some drivers staring for a moment before looking away, unwilling to stop, unwilling to see our pain. To them we were a scene best ignored. I tried to stay strong for my daughter. I wrapped her in my scarf, kissed her forehead, and told her a story, how sometimes the clouds cry so that our tears can take a rest. She believed me. But I didn't believe myself. Just when I thought the night would never end, a taxi pulled over. The driver, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, rolled down his window. "Madam, where to?" he asked softly. I froze. I had nowhere. No home. No family willing to take me in. My lips trembled as I whispered the only place I could think of. The church 2 streets away. The driver nodded without asking for money. "Get in," he said. His voice was gentle, like he understood more than I could explain. The vinyl seat squeaked as I climbed in with my daughter, every bump in the road pressing against my spine and my unborn child. My daughter leaned her head against the window, tracing raindrops as if they were racing each other, whispering her little secrets to the fastest one. When we reached the church, the gatekeeper recognized me immediately. Without a word, he opened the gate and let us in. We entered the quiet compound, and for the first time that night, I felt a tiny drop of safety. Inside, the pews smelled of old polish and prayers long whispered. I laid down with my daughter, using my arms as her pillow. The ceiling fans spun slowly, their ticking sound like a heavy clock counting down the longest night of my life. I placed my hand on my belly and whispered to the life growing inside me, "I will not let them erase you. I will not let them erase us." For the first time that night, I believed my own words, if only for a moment. Morning arrived with a dull gray sky. My daughter woke up coughing, her little chest shaking. Rage boiled inside me. How could they do this to us? How could the family I trusted throw us into the street? That's when I remembered the one number my husband had told me to keep safe. The only man he said I could trust. Mr. Daniels, the family lawyer. My fingers shook as I dialed. "Sarah," he said the moment he picked up. He didn't even ask who it was. His voice was steady, firm, like a man who had been waiting for my call. "They threw us out," I whispered, my throat tight with shame and fury. "They said I am nothing." "You are not nothing," he said firmly. "And you are not alone. Your husband prepared for this. Can you come to the office quietly? With a child and a belly?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I'll send a car," he replied. "Black Corolla. 15 minutes. Wait near the gate. Keep your head down." I gathered what little we had left. a nylon bag with 2 dresses, my daughter's damp crayons, and the last photo we had taken as a family. My husband's smile in that photo looked alive, as if he was still with us. Exactly 15 minutes later, the black Corolla arrived. The driver didn't say a word as we climbed in. Legos blurred past the window. Billboards, buses, women selling fruits and wrappers. A city that never paused for anyone's grief. Mr. Daniels welcomed us into his office with warmth. The air smelled of leather and peppermint tea. He offered my daughter a towel and a biscuit before turning to me with serious eyes. Then he slid a brown envelope across the desk. My name was written on it, in my husband's handwriting. I knew that curve of the S. My heart stopped. "Read it," Mr. Daniels said gently. I opened it with trembling hands. It wasn't a love letter. It was instructions. A key taped to the corner. And one line that shattered everything I thought I knew. "If they turn on you, go to safe deposit box 17. Everything is already in your name." My breath caught. My chest tightened. What does he mean? I whispered. Mr. Daniels sighed heavily, like a man carrying a secret too long. Your husband transferred everything into your name 3 weeks ago. The properties, the bank accounts, the shares, the estate abroad. They cannot touch it. It all belongs to you now. I looked at my daughter. She was sitting on the carpet, drawing a sun with her yellow crayon, pressing so hard the paper nearly tore. She was filling the room with light, even when the world had turned dark. My eyes burned with tears. Why didn't he tell me? Why did he keep this from me? Because he knew them, Mr. Daniels said softly. And he trusted you. That afternoon we went to the bank. The heavy vault doors opened with a sound like thunder, and inside box 17 were stacks of documents. Deeds, transfers, trust papers, even a sealed USB drive with my initials. Each paper I touched felt like justice waiting to be revealed. When I signed the ledger, my hand didn't tremble. Not anymore. As we stepped out into the daylight, the city looked different. Brighter. Stronger. My daughter held my hand as we bought Puff Puff from a street vendor. She smiled, sugar dusting her lips. For a moment we looked ordinary. And ordinary felt like a miracle. But miracles don't last long. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. Widow. The man's voice was sharp and cold. I hear you found something that doesn't belong to you. My heart froze. Who is this? I asked. Family, he said with a soft laugh. Enjoy your little papers. We'll see how far they take you. The line went dead. My daughter tugged on my sleeve, smiling with sugared lips. Mommy, can we go home now? I looked at her, then at the city, then at the sky heavy with promises of war. Yes, I whispered. But not to the house they had stolen from me. To the life I was going to rebuild. To the revenge I was going to take. The day had only just begun. The man's voice still echoed in my ears long after the call ended. Family. That word had never sounded so rotten. I looked at my daughter's innocent face, sugar still clinging to her lips. She believed the storm was over, but I knew it was just beginning. Mr. Daniels placed a firm hand on my shoulder. They know, he said quietly. It didn't take long. But Sarah, you are not defenseless. You have the law. And you have me. I nodded, but deep inside I felt something else growing. Not just fear. Not just survival. It was rage, steady and sharp, like fire spreading through dry wood. They had stolen my home, my dignity, my peace. But they didn't know yet, they had also given me power. That night, in a small rented flat Mr. Daniels arranged, I tucked my daughter into bed. She clutched her yellow crayon tightly, refusing to let it go, even in sleep. I sat beside her and whispered to the child still inside my belly. They think they buried me. But I am the seed. I will rise. The next morning, Mr. Daniels and I began quietly gathering everything my husband had left me. Properties in my name. Shares in companies his brothers didn't even know existed. Hidden accounts with amounts that made my head spin. And then, there it was. The inheritance no one could have imagined. $600 million. The number didn't even feel real at first. But it was mine. Not by luck. By my husband's foresight. By his love. They'll fight you, Mr. Daniels warned. They'll threaten, lie, even try to harm you. But Sarah, the law is on your side. We just have to be patient. Patient. The word tasted bitter on my tongue. I wasn't going to wait quietly while they enjoyed stolen wine in my husband's house. Days turned into weeks. I stayed silent, moving like a shadow. On the outside they thought I had vanished. On the inside I was building. I opened a new account. Transferred assets. Bought properties under a holding company with my name hidden. My daughter went to school quietly under a different surname. I was invisible to them. And in my invisibility I grew stronger. Then one evening the phone rang again. This time I recognized the voice. It was David, my husband's eldest brother. "Sarah," he said, pretending warmth. "Let's meet. We can talk this out like family. No need for lawyers." My grip on the phone tightened. "Family." I spat the word. "You threw me into the street while I carried your brother's child. You watched me shiver in the rain." He chuckled, unbothered. "Come now. You're young. Emotional. Let's make a deal. You give us what belongs to us and maybe, we'll let you keep a little for yourself. For your children." For a moment, silence stretched between us. Then I said very calmly, "David, everything belongs to me. And soon the world will know it." I hung up before he could reply. The revenge began quietly. First, I instructed Mr. Daniels to file official claims of ownership over every property. The court documents bore my name, stamped and sealed. There was no undoing it. Then I sent notices to every bank the family used. From that moment, their accounts were frozen, pending investigation into fraud and illegal possession. Their credit cards stopped working. Their businesses stalled. And then the sweetest blow, the mansion. My husband's house. The place they had laughed in while I stood in the rain. With a single order from the court, it was returned to me. The eviction notice reached them at dinner. Mr. Daniels later told me he wished he could have recorded their faces when they realized the house they claimed was never theirs at all. Neighbors gathered to watch as they were thrown out, just like they had once thrown me and my children. Their clothes, their furniture, their bottles of champagne, all scattered on the street. The same street where my daughter had picked crayons from the mud. I stood at a distance, dressed simply, my pregnant belly now heavier, my daughter's hand in mine. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to curse. My silence was louder than thunder. David saw me across the street. His face turned red with fury. "You witch," he screamed. "You think this is over?" I smiled, calm and steady. "It's only just begun." After that, their downfall accelerated. The media caught wind of the inheritance. Headlines spread like fire. "Widow inherits $600 million. Family accused of fraud and abuse." Their reputations crumbled overnight. Business partners withdrew. Friends turned their backs. Even their mother, who had closed the curtain on me, found herself abandoned. But I wasn't finished. One by one I filed lawsuits. Fraud, harassment, illegal eviction. With every court date I sat tall, dressed in black, my children beside me. And each time the judge ruled in my favor. They lost everything: properties, cars, businesses. Everything they once claimed was theirs. The final stroke came when I bought the very company David had built from scratch. I bought it quietly through a third party. He walked into his office one Monday morning only to find security barring him from entering. His name removed from the building. His power gone. When he finally realized I was the new owner, he collapsed into a chair, his face pale. "Why?" he asked, his voice breaking. I leaned forward and whispered, "Because you tried to erase me. And now I've erased you." By the time my son was born, the family that had once thrown me into the street had nothing left. No wealth. No home. No respect. Meanwhile, I stood stronger than ever. Mother of two, heir to a fortune, and owner of everything they thought was theirs. But the sweetest victory wasn't the money. It was the look in my daughter's eyes the day we moved back into the mansion. She ran through the halls, crayons in hand, shouting, "Mommy, we're home." I stood at the window, the same one where my mother-in-law had once closed the curtains on me, and this time I opened them wide. I wasn't the broken widow they thought they could destroy. I was Sarah Daniels, mother, fighter, and the woman who turned betrayal into revenge. And I promised myself, no one would ever take that from us again.